In this next section, we're going to look at some of these specific risks that can befall you as an accountant for using AI tools such as Copilot, ChatGPT, etc. if you use them incorrectly in the profession of accounting. Now, of course, the most obvious one of these is a data breach through AI tools, such as exposing clients' data. You can accidentally mix confidential information with public information. You can mix client 1 with client 2 with client 3's information, etc., which all provides poor results. But on top of that, it's also sharing information illegally and unethically. It could be that client A and client B are actually competitors and you're sharing private information about them with each other. There are also regulatory consequences of data breaches. There's lots of famous examples such as Manchester United, British Airways, all of which had data breaches and lots of private information was shared, and that led to huge consequences, both from fines and investigations and legal action, but also in damage to their reputation. And the financial impact of data breaches can cost millions. It can be in the cost of forensics, it can be in the cost of remediation, it can be in the cost of punitive fines as well. So using AI tools ineffectively, unethically, irresponsibly can lead to huge financial and reputational consequences. So let's take a look now at a few specific risks. Just building on this one, first of all, data breach. Got a few examples here. And this was an example of an accounting firm in the United States. Now, what had happened is they'd been using AI assistants, they'd been using AI tools, and essentially they had been sharing information by accident. So I've blocked out a lot of the names. Now, of course, I've done this because I don't want to be accused of breaching data myself, but they were sharing client A's financial data with client B, sharing client B's with client C, clients A and C's with client D, and so on. And so this basically all came as a result of using an AI tool ineffectively and illegally or irresponsibly. And it wasn't discovered for a long time. And this mid-sized firm, by the time it was actually discovered that they had been sharing information, 127,000 clients had been affected by this data breach. So 127,000 clients had their data shared with other companies. And the cost and the time to investigate this was enormous. It took over a year to identify all of the affected parties. Now, of course, what do you think happened to this accounting firm's reputation? What do you think happened to them as an organization as a result of this? Remember that they were sharing client information, affected 127,000 clients, and it took them well over a year to actually identify all the affected parties. Well, of course, there was a huge cost to this in terms of the actual investigation, but the actual trust, this core concept of the accountant-client relationship, the trust between the accountant and the client, completely evaporated. So many clients left them. Their reputation was permanently damaged. It would be very, very difficult for them now to bring in, to attract any kind of new business because of this breach. All because they used an AI tool to analyze information. Not because they were hacked, not because someone left crucial information on a USB stick on a train and someone found it and decided to misuse it, but simply because they were using an AI tool in an improper fashion, in a way that wasn't secure, in a way that wasn't ethical. So now here's another example of risk from using AI tools in accounting. Now, I put AI hallucinations in tax advice. That's just for the purposes of the example. AI hallucinations can be present in any kind of work that you are doing. So, for example, here I've got a tax question. Accountant asks AI about complex tax law. That is a perfectly valid way of using AI to find information, but AI can make mistakes. It can hallucinate. It can pull lots of bits of information together and mix it all up and create an output which looks good, but is actually completely incorrect or is using outdated information. So what happens then if the accountant doesn't verify, doesn't check that information? Well, they go and give it to the client. The accountant uses unverified information, provides the client with advice, and the client gets in trouble for using incorrect information, producing an incorrect tax return. Now, again, that causes huge damage to the client's relationship. It causes huge damage to the client's reputation. It causes huge damage to the accountant's credibility and the accountant's reputation, which again can lead to penalties and other liabilities. Now, a way to combat this is to always make sure that you are double checking the information. You can go back to, say, GPT or Copilot or Gemini. You can ask it to explain where it got the information from. Ask it to show its sources. And then use the links that it provides to double check the information. And again, as always, as the human, as the accountant, the one with the expertise, you need to be checking and verifying any output. Another one which you may not initially have thought of, but is a very, very important risk of using AI nevertheless, and that's bias and discrimination. So whilst this is less obvious in your day-to-day role as an accountant, so whether it's analyzing information or bookkeeping, whatever it might be, AI algorithms can be biased, particularly ones that are used to support decision making, ones that are used to predict credit risk, insurance claims, or even hiring within your firm. So for example, if you use an AI system alone to rely on credit decisions, it might have lots of historic built-in bias based on the internet and based on history, etc., and may give unfavorable terms to minority-owned businesses. It could also discriminate against certain applicants if you're using it just to analyze CVs. Again, that could actually violate equal opportunity laws, which could lead to lawsuits, it could lead to compliance breaches, and also it's simply an unethical way to run your business. Another problem with AI is sometimes it's very difficult to see how AI makes its decisions. And so a lack of transparency can be a real risk with using AI in accounting as well. So it's always best to use your own judgment on top of the AI's output. It's always best to verify it and also to double check it, to ask it to repeat itself, to explain why it made the decision it made, to see if you agree with it. Another risk is to use unvetted AI vendors. Just as with any tool that you use, you need to conduct your due diligence. There are lots of AI vendors out there. It's the big new thing, and there are hundreds of different companies offering lots of different tools. And because it is quite an unregulated industry at the moment compared to, say, accounting as a whole, there are lots of potential risks. Potential risks from security. How secure is this AI tool? What's its security like? How easy is it for someone to hack into it? What kinds of failures may arise as a result of using that tool? If you rely on an audit tool and it samples, and what if it misses a particular transaction and leads to errors? It might miss fraud. Now, surely that's the role of an accountant, if anything, to detect fraud, or the role of an accountant to detect any kind of financial anomaly. So making sure that you conduct effective due diligence is important to use AI ethically as an accountant to ensure there are no due diligence lapses, because the consequences can be severe. So all these other sorts of regulations you've been complying with for a long time, such as GDPR, we all know about the importance of GDPR. We were to change lots of things a few years ago to do with GDPR. Don't throw all that away by using AI unethically, because you can face up to 20 million euros in a fine for data breaches, the average cost of which is over $4.35 billion. The financial sector, which includes accounting, has some of the most expensive data breaches in business as a whole, because a lot of people can be affected by it. Remember the story I just told about the 127,000 clients affected in one mid-sized accounting firm. What if you worked for a large firm with millions of clients? You could affect millions of people with one improper use of AI. And what kind of fine, what kind of reputational damage would you take then? So it's so important to use AI ethically, because there are real risks of using it. And it can cause huge reputational damage for you. If you oversee an incident of a breach or an error or bias, if your recruitment software was basically scrapping the CVs of anyone that was from a minority group, what kind of media coverage would be pointed at your organization once that was exposed to the public? How much damage could that do to your firm? How much trust would be eroded as a result of doing that? And what kind of oversight, what kind of penalties would your organization face as a result of that? An enormous amount. And remember, going back to this idea of your professional responsibility as an accountant, always verify your outputs, conduct your due diligence effectively, make sure you have an oversight of any systems using AI to ensure that your usage of it, the output, meets professional standards. So some key takeaways from this section here: ensure ethical vigilance, because the consequences can be enormous. Always apply your professional judgment, because an AI cannot replace your ethical responsibility. And always make sure you safeguard any of your processes, any of your practices that use AI, because unethical AI practices can cause breaches, which can damage your most valuable asset, which is your reputation. So again, really important to take away these key risks here of using AI in the accounting profession.